In the aftermath of the Weltkrieg, nations were born anew from the negotiations of great powers, the machinations of their leaders, and the fires of nationalism. Albania has already existed prior to the Weltkrieg as one of the many principalities that were formed from the collapse of the Ottoman power. But, being far weaker than its peers, it became prey for the greater powers that much quicker. Austria, Germany, and Italy all fought for influence in Albania in a chaotic Game of Thrones, through which they were seeking to control the strategic Straits of Otranto, which links the Mediterranean to the Adriatic, and the naval supply route to the embattled Serbia on the Eastern Front. Ultimately, the Central Powers would prevail, and Italy's grip on the Balkans was severed. However, Albania's new overlords, the Habsburgs of Vienna, would prove weak and distracted by internal strife. Albanian nationalists quickly seized their chance and declared Albania an independent republic, finally free from its foreign rulers. Instrumental in the struggle was the Progressive Party, led by nationalists such as Ahmet Zogu and Shavkat Vjorlaci. However, despite their prominent role in proclaiming the republic and governing it for the past decade, the party was not able to modernize the economy, and outside the capital Tirana, the majority of Albanians live the same life that they have been living for hundreds of years, under feudalism. The country's old aristocracy has benefited from the status quo, but Albania remains backward, lacking an industrial base and plagued by mass illiteracy. Whether the administrative and conservative policies of the ruling party can secure the future of Albania is a rising concern among the nation's educated. This has led to a rise in popularity of the Social Democratic Unity Party, which seeks to bring down the remnants of the feudal system. While the Republic's three earlier elections were dominated by the Progressive Party, Unity is going to be far tougher competition. Led by Avni Rustemi and Fan Noli, the Unity Party seeks to obtain national leadership. However, in a land of intrigue and revenge, such a high-stakes power struggle can have disastrous consequences. Albania in Kaiserreich actually starts in a very terrible position compared to many other nations, and because of this it can't actually do all that much compared to others, but the way that the devs have laid out the focus tree makes sure that you're going to have a good time, even if you're probably going to die. So essentially what the problems that you're facing are is that you're probably the weakest country in Europe, and you're in the very unstable environment of the Balkans. So of course you're going to have to deal with things like the Balkan Wars and how Bulgaria's hegemony over the Balkans is being slowly and gradually sort of torn down by Serbia, Greece, and Romania. And of course Serbia and Greece are very hostile powers. So it is going to be very important for you to actually think about whether or not, outside of your internal politics, you're going to have to try to get involved in foreign policies. Now, the foreign policy in Albania and Kaiserreich is actually handled by events and decisions entirely. It doesn't have a focus tree for that, so you might not notice it until a little bit later in the game. But essentially, the way Albania works is that there's a lot of ways for you to die, because you have the Balkan War versus, the Fourth Balkan War with Serbia versus Bulgaria, which often results in them just collapsing and then attacking you. You have assassination attempts against you because the politics are so polarized that essentially one of the parties that you pick are going to be targeted by assassins and revolts, and to avoid that you're going to have to essentially improve your police through the focus tree. And then you of course have the fact that even if you do again try to stay in isolation and you do not help Bulgaria, or you try to get allies abroad, you are probably still going to be attacked by Serbia and Greece, and they have much superior forces to you, so it is pretty difficult for you to actually prevail. That being said, it is actually quite enjoyable what the devs have done with the internal situation of Albania, because Albania starts in a very backward state, and they do convey that very well with a lot of these events and the focus tree. So it is actually pretty good it feels pretty good, at least, to either take the wheel of this kind of traditional society and try to keep it going, or just turn it upside down if you decide to pick with the Social Democrats. So that is, in my opinion, the strong point of this focus tree. And that said, if you do mess up, what happens is it's actually a pretty unique mechanic. As I said, you can't get assassinated playing as Albania, and you can have your president just, you know, be murdered. And the way you avoid that is you have a focus tree called Arme de Gendarmerie. You pick that, and then that means that essentially the assassination attempts will be foiled. If you do not do that, then you just take a massive stability penalty and you switch parties. So you can actually, in a way, play both, which is kind of interesting. You can role play, quote unquote, as that. I do not recommend it because you're already a very, very unstable and sort of weak country, as you know, to begin with. So it is actually quite difficult for you to get that working. And the rest of the experience is all about how you're going to react again to the changing chessboard of the Balkans, and because of course you have a lot of disputed territories with Greece and Serbia, over, you know, Kosovo, video demonetized, and over Epirus. So there's a lot of different ways in which these countries can decide that they're going to attack you and kill you. The options that you have to try to save yourself are generally in the foreign policy decisions, because there you can actually get alliances with Bulgaria if the conditions are right, with Austria, although it's difficult, but you can get an alliance with Austria. And you can actually get some relations going with, for example, two Sicilies and Egypt, but they're actually just kind of flavor and trade relations and that kind of stuff. You don't actually usually get military help. But yeah, as I said, you can get an alliance, a defensive alliance with Bulgaria, actually even after they lose the Fourth Balkan War. So you can ignite essentially a Fifth Balkan War to fight for Kosovo or for Epirus. You get a claim on northern Epirus, which I believe is called like Cameria or something. And yeah, so that is about it. The strengths of the focus tree, as I said, are the flavor and the events and how it explains everything. The kind of, I mean, the parts that aren't as good, they aren't as good by design, as in, you know, it's very difficult to play, and it's very difficult to essentially survive, but that's because it is supposed to be so. So it is actually quite good. Your main hopes of survival are if Serbia decides to ignore you and try to attack the Austrians, and you know, if the Belgrade Pact somehow collapses and falls, then you can have an opportunity to expand into Kosovo, into northern Epirus, and make a greater Albania. And then maybe try to play out your influence on the Eastern European chessboard, so that is good. But most likely, and it's kind of a nice jump of reality, most likely you're just going to crash and burn and be destroyed. And that's what I enjoy about this focus tree. It is brutal, and it is not at all rosy, and that is how the way it's supposed to be. So yeah, I want to thank you all for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed this slightly different in style Kaiserreich guide, but because of the way the country works, I deemed it necessary. In fact, I'm going to try to do things like this a little bit more. So yeah, have a good day, see you soon, and yeah, hope you'll enjoy.